Thank you for the fake internet points. Thank you for sharing your experience with those who need it. Story 1. Someone who only takes from you and never gives anything back. They take up your time without giving you their time in return. They demand your attention but ignore you. They expect your understanding but never take the time to understand you. It goes on and on. Every relationship, romantic or otherwise, is give and take. Each party must give of themselves as much, if not more, than they take. That's not to say it's always wrong to give without expecting anything in return. Generosity and selflessness are good things. However, if you're the only one ever being generous, then something isn't right. Edit. This got a lot of love. I did not expect that. Thank you all for the upvotes and awards. Story 2. Not comfortable being honest with your partner is probably a big indicator that something isn't quite right. If you're afraid that what you have to say will become an argument or is turned on you, there's something deeply wrong with the relationship. Story 3. A one-sided relationship. One where you feel like you are the only one doing anything. One where you feel like you are the only one fighting to keep things going right. It's exhausting. You give up and you just quit. Story 4. From personal experience over the last 10 years, manipulation, criticism, controlling, withholding care, lack of attention, and lack of respect while giving care, respect, and attention to others just to rub it in. Giving and taking away. Life revolves around them. Your feelings, needs, and wants are irrelevant. They'll slowly erode your self-worth and self-confidence. No matter how much love you give, it will never change because it's not about you. They're damaged and leave nothing but casualties. The most difficult part is accepting this because you believe you can fix them. You can't, and it's not your job to. Story 5. Someone who makes you feel like you are always the problem and who will complain only about what you need to fix or did wrong. Someone who makes you feel dread to even hang out because you're on thin ice all the time and constantly belittles your opinions, ideas, and needs. Story 6. Repeatedly starting arguments when under stress, deflecting the conversation to other points of contention when valid rebuttals come and work has clearly been done to address the reason the argument was started. Not being able to hear each other's side of the story, threatening violence and being violent, bringing up issues about your partner but not being able to handle the issues that are brought up about you, constantly having a problem and denying all solutions your partner comes up with, not accepting apologies, name-calling, shaming, bringing other people into your arguments, physically fighting in front of children. Story 7. 1. Being scared of communication, or there not being any communication between the two people at all. Both people in a relationship at the end of the day are still two different people, no matter how compatible you are on paper. We are not psychic or telepaths, and sometimes we just don't know if there is an issue that's present. We are also not perfect, so it's inevitable that we might say something foolish or do something foolish, not out of malicious intent, but because we made a mistake. Being scared of telling your partner something, no matter what it is, a concern, a feeling of jealousy, a complaint, whatever, because you're afraid that it might lead to an argument or even worse, a breakup, is a huge sign that the relationship is on the rocks. Healthy communication should, in my opinion, be the most important thing in a relationship. Otherwise, all the feelings you're keeping inside will eventually boil over and turn into resentment, anger, or passive-aggressive behavior. This also relates to speaking your mind on topics you have an opinion on and not blindly agreeing to an opinion just because your partner has an opposing view. Being a personal human band-aid for their mental health issues. Before I go on, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't support your partner in their mental health struggles. Of course, you should be supportive of them. But when it gets to a point where you become the target of their anger, annoyance, or breakdowns because they won't seek out professional help, especially when you even offer to pay for the therapist for them, then that will take a huge toll on your psyche and self-esteem. It turns into a cycle of, I'm sorry, it's okay, and rinse and repeat. That is eventually going to make you very callous to their problems, which turns into a big problem down the road. You can love someone deeply, but resentment and annoyance are going to creep up on you very soon. Not to mention, you start to wonder if there's a problem with you. Remember, you should support your partner, but you're not solely responsible for their well-being or being their therapeutic punching bag, as harsh and selfish as that might sound. Story 8. Sadly, it's often something that becomes painfully obvious in hindsight. My ex used to keep me awake at night by hitting me, spitting on me, pulling my hair, throwing my stuff, and she would hide my glasses and phone before that, so I couldn't escape. I'm pretty much legally blind without my glasses. Our relationship lasted 10 long years. This happened at least once or twice a month. I stayed for a multitude of reasons. First, I genuinely believed that I was the abusive one. In hindsight, that's pretty ridiculous, as I have never even lifted a finger on her. Second, my self-esteem was so destroyed that I genuinely believed I deserved it or that it was as good as it could get for me. Third, she apologized often for her behavior, making me believe she could change. And lastly, I didn't know it was abusive. It sounds ridiculous to say that now, but it didn't seem as severe as the abuse we see in movies where the woman has a very visible black eye and she is hidden. I didn't really think that I, as a man, could be a victim of domestic abuse. So how can a man know? Well, first, if your partner ever hits you, get out. I don't care if it was just a little tap. I don't care if it didn't really hurt. Just get out. Your partner definitely doesn't respect you, and it can only get worse. But your partner doesn't need to physically abuse you for it to be an abusive relationship. If your partner constantly makes you feel like you are inferior in some way, like no matter how hard you try, you're never good enough for them, well, it might be toxic, to say the least. If you feel like there's a double standard in the relationship, for instance, you need to inform your partner days or weeks in advance before seeing your friends, but they can come up to you and ask you to drive them to their friends anytime, then yeah, huge red flag. There are other red flags. Many have pointed them out. Story 9. I just bookmarked this post. I recently broke up with a woman I was deeply in love with, but it was definitely a toxic relationship. I need to read this post anytime I think I'm missing her. Story 10. Someone who drains you emotionally and forces you to have certain opinions by giving ultimatums. Sometimes those ultimatums involve borderline torture and thoughts of self-harm. One indicator is when you feel very poorly about yourself around them. In my case, I felt very little when I was around this person and truly believed that I deserved all the things they did to me. It takes a long time to get over it, and sometimes you might be very scared to say their name out loud. I can't say their name even after 4 years. Another common indicator of a toxic relationship is that they attack you if they see you doing a little better just to make things worse again. Story 11. I actually just kind of had a reckoning with this recently. I've been talking to a girl for a few weeks and fingers crossed I don't mess it up, but I digress. I realize that I feel at ease around this girl because she's the first person I've been romantically interested in. That doesn't make me feel bad for being myself since high school. Now, I'm not perfect and I absolutely should be called out if I'm being unreasonable, but my ex made me feel like just existing and being myself was a crime about 85% of the time. I've caught myself apologizing to new people for things like the way my voice sounds in general. I felt like I couldn't be myself for fear of being yelled at or made to feel like I was being a problem. I couldn't have an honest discussion or I'd be accused of turning things around and playing the victim, to the point where I couldn't even say I was feeling happy without it causing a fight and being blamed for it. After 6 months of being single and now talking to a person who genuinely seems to like me for who I am is such a mind shift when I know it shouldn't be. Story 12. I think a relationship can turn toxic while both parties personally are not toxic people. I think when trust is betrayed in a relationship, whether that be cheating, lying, a breakup and getting back together or whatever, it never truly operates the same way if there is not change. Trust is probably the most important thing, and if you do not have it, there is a good chance the relationship turns toxic. Once you lose trust, it never really goes back. Relationships should not be all stress all the time, so if yours is, then it is probably toxic. Time to move on. Edit. Oh my gosh. Thanks for the award. Story 13. Well, I was seeing a woman who expected that I woo her, but the expectation was that I didn't have to be wooed. This setup was pretty toxic in hindsight because it assumed that I didn't have feelings, that I was a robot ready to serve. I don't think I've ever been wooed or courted or gone after, or however you young people are calling it these days. Story 14. General things. Extreme jealousy, double standards, never allowing you to have me time, constant negativity and nagging, invading your privacy, constantly putting your friends down, especially female friends. Something that happened to me that I didn't really understand the gravity of at the time. We lived together and had a joint billing account that we contributed to each month. She would constantly buy things on finance or sign up for subscriptions billed to that account and make it out as something needed, or sometimes even just say, "Oh, this is only £200 and we could do with it for the house." And I'd check the bank and it was actually £500. She would play it off as, "I just like shopping." Her friends and family all laughed about it like it was a harmless quirk, and at the time it annoyed me, but I thought it was just another bill. Looking back, it was financial control and abuse. I earned more money, and you can bet when the account was short at the end of the month, I was the only person who was topping it up. Story 15. As far as I'm concerned, a toxic relationship is one that is largely one-sided. One person is always pulling the weight, doing the chores, trying to make things work, and paying for things, etc. A healthy relationship is one where both people put effort into making life easier for one another. Story 16. Once had a girlfriend who would stalk me when we were not together on social media and such, and then call me up crying every time I was at a party, or just doing anything that was not with her. I traveled Europe for a month with a friend, a dude, and she called me so many times during the day that it ended up costing me like $250 in phone bills. That was toxic as hell, and it took me way too long to realize how much stress I was under all the time. Story 17. When you have to call or chat and say where you are or where you are going to go. When you cannot give your honest opinions on things and you must always agree with your partner. When your partner reminds you of past events every time you do not want to do something. When your partner does not respect your time, either by getting late or planning things with too little time to start. This applies to any relationship and both genders. Story 18. You are led to believe you are lucky to be chosen by her and have to keep up with being at her level, adapting yourself to her 24 hours a day, and that as soon as you make a mistake or do anything wrong, she'll leave you and it was your fault. At the same time, there's nothing in it for you. Any complaints or opinions you have might be labeled as weakness, so you keep them to yourself. She essentially takes and takes. Well, this may not represent all toxic relationships, but is more a depiction of a relationship with a narcissistic female. Story 19. If at any time you feel like or are explicitly told that you're not allowed to do something by your significant other, it's time to call it quits. Don't get me wrong, there are a great number of things you shouldn't want to do out of love and respect, like, say, cheating. But if it's something mundane, bail. Story 20. The silent treatment. If I make a mistake, I understand if she doesn't want to talk about it immediately, but I at least deserve to know that I messed up, rather than wondering why she's just suddenly gone cold on me. I've ended a few relationships over this. One unfortunately broke the woman's heart. I regret that part of it. Constantly giving, but receiving no reciprocation. I'll always be the one to make the first effort to set something up, but I won't do it forever. I'm not going to be the only working wheel on this train. I'm not hard to please, just make an effort. Any kind of effort. I've ended a few friendships over this. Passive-aggressive behaviors. Full stop. Story 21. Trying to make me feel like the bad guy for wanting to spend time with family and friends. Expecting me to pay for everything. Constantly messaging or calling me when we're apart. Story 22. For me, it was the constant fighting and her daily methamphetamine use, paranoia, and jealousy issues. It was also my drinking, and when you add all of that up, it just doesn't mix. Story 23. Pretending things are fine in person, then as soon as you've left, they send a big text detailing everything you did wrong. Once, I asked her repeatedly whether she wanted me to walk her home. She said no, she didn't want to inconvenience me. The second I started walking back to my place, I received a massive text about how I should have gone with her. On her birthday, I kept asking what she wanted to do. She didn't give any answers, basically just saying, "Whatever you want to do." That night, I headed into town and told her I would meet her at a certain place. Then, apparently, I was in the wrong because I didn't read her mind. I ended it there. That was too much nonsense for me. A couple of friends and I went and had a great time, and they reassured me that I'd made the right decision. Story 24. I guess a relationship that leaves you worse off than being single. That might be worse off financially, emotionally, physically, or whatever. Any relationship where you are better off being single is toxic. Story 25. I could get roasted for this, but insecurities are a massive no for me. If you start to hear the who are you messaging, you can't follow that person, etc., the basic signs of control, I am out. It's a slippery slope.